They say the deadliest weapon isn't the rifle, it's the silence before the shot. Aaron learned that truth at 3 years old, kneeling in snow beside a wolf with amber eyes, breath frozen in his lungs, heartbeat slowed to a whisper. Now the world knows his name, and the organization that engineered him wants their property back, even if it means burning the mountain and everyone he loves to ash. Welcome back to my channel, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy the story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The first lesson he ever learned wasn't how to walk, speak, or even throw a punch. It was silence. In the heart of the Emberwood Mountains, where the nights stretch long and the moon hangs heavy like a watchful eye, an infant was found at the base of the wolves' sacred steps. No note, no basket, just swaddling cloth stained with something dark, and a cry that echoed across the forest like a challenge thrown at the gods themselves. The pack's high alpha, Korath, had been the first to approach the tiny creature. A towering beast with armor forged from volcanic stone and iron runes, he loomed over the baby like a living nightmare sculpted from shadow and firelight. His claws, each one the length of a hunting knife, clicked against stone as he circled the bundle. Steam rose from his breath in the winter air. His eyes, molten gold and ancient, studied the infant with the kind of intensity reserved for prey or enemies. The baby stared back. No fear. No flinching. Just wide, unfocused eyes that somehow locked onto the alpha's gaze and refused to blink. Karatha's lips pulled back, revealing fangs that could snap bone like kindling. The other wolves behind him tensed, waiting for the decree, leave it or end it. Instead, Karath let out a low rumble, a sound that vibrated through the stone, through the trees, through the very marrow of the mountain. Every wolf instantly recognized it as a decree. This one is ours. They named him Aaron, a word in their ancient tongue meaning the one who survives what should kill him. A fitting name, since the wolves nearly shook themselves bald trying to understand how a creature so small could eat so much, cry so loudly, and bite with no teeth. But they accepted him, raised him, and because wolves are very bad at gentle parenting, trained him with the same methods they used on their own pups. Run or die. Fight or fall. Track or starve. No middle ground. No, good effort, sweetie. Karath taught Aaron to hunt by scent long before he knew how to count. The boy would stumble through snowdrifts on legs barely strong enough to hold him, following the alpha's massive paw prints, learning to read the wind, the branches, the way prey moved when it thought it was alone. Elder Kaelin, a silver-furred wolf with scars crisscrossing her muzzle like ancient runes, taught him how to move through a forest without breaking a single twig. She'd wait in the shadows, ears flicking, and the moment Aaron made a sound, she'd pounce. No warning. No mercy. Just the cold shock of snow in his face and her disappointed growl, again. And then there was Vaska, the twin-blade warrior. A wolf who walked upright more often than not, her crimson-streaked armor gleaming in the firelight, twin daggers strapped to her forearms. She taught him how to predict danger before he could see it, something she demonstrated by ambushing him at random hours of the day until he developed reflexes sharp enough to swat a falling leaf out of the air with a stone. "You're too loud," she'd say, stepping out of a shadow he swore was empty 2 seconds ago. "I didn't make a sound." Aaron would protest, breath heaving, eyes wild. "Your heartbeat. Too fast. I heard it from 20 paces. That's not fair." "Neither is death." She'd grin, all fangs. "Try again." He learned to climb sheer rock faces, wrestle wolves twice his size, and lose spectacularly, and read emotions from the twitch of an ear or tail. This later proved useful when dealing with humans, whose facial expressions were somehow even more confusing than wolf body language. "Why do they smile when they're angry?" he once asked Karath after watching a group of traders argue near the base of the mountain. Karath snorted. "Humans are broken. They say one thing, mean another, and expect you to guess which is true." "That sounds exhausting." "It is. That's why we bit most of them." Aaron paused. "Is that why they don't come here anymore?" "Partially." Karatha's eyes gleamed. Mostly it's because we ate the last ones who tried. Aaron decided not to ask follow-up questions. But the wolves' greatest gift came during one particularly brutal winter, when blizzards turned the mountains into a death trap of ice and darkness. Aaron was 15, lean, scarred, and feral in a way that made even the younger wolves nervous. He moved like water, spoke in growls as often as words, and had stopped flinching at blood years ago. Karath had summoned him to the throne room. The great stone hall was lit by braziers that burned with eerie green flame, casting shadows that danced like restless spirits. Karath sat upon his throne, a massive slab of obsidian carved with the names of every alpha who had ruled before him. His armor gleamed. His eyes burned. And in his clawed hands, he held a weapon unlike anything Aaron had ever seen. A rifle. But not just any rifle. It was long, elegant, and impossibly beautiful, carved from obsidian so black it seemed to drink the light, reinforced with silver bone that gleamed like moonlight and engraved with runes of focus, silence, and sight. The barrel was etched with wolf script, prayers to ancient gods who'd long since stopped answering. The stock fit perfectly against a shoulder, as if it had been made for him specifically. Aaron stared. Karatha's voice rumbled like distant thunder. This is not to make you a killer. Aaron swallowed. Then what is it for? To make you precise. Aaron scoffed, trying to cover the awe crawling up his spine. A stick with a hole in it makes me precise? Karatha's eyes narrowed, pointed at the ice wall. Aaron hesitated, then lifted the rifle. It was heavier than he expected, but balanced, perfectly, impossibly balanced. He lined up the iron sights, inhaled, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle barely kicked. The ice wall exploded. Not cracked. Not shattered. Exploded, as if something inside it had detonated, sending shards flying in every direction, leaving a crater the size of a wolf in the center. Aaron said nothing for a full day, mostly because his eyebrows were frozen in a permanent look of shock. Years passed. Aaron grew. Trained. Bled. Survived. By 18, he could track a deer through 3 miles of forest by scent alone, take it down with a single shot from 1,000 paces, and disappear before the echo faded. His heart could slow to 2 beats per minute. His breath could vanish into the wind. His eyes, once brown, had shifted to a pale gold, a gift from the pack or a curse, depending on who you asked. He was no longer just a boy raised by wolves. He was something other. And the pack knew it was time. Karath stood before him one cold morning, armor gleaming, eyes unreadable. The trial of the crimson moon, the alpha said simply. Aaron's blood went cold. You're serious? I am. No human has ever passed that trial. No human has ever been raised by us. Karath leaned closer, his breath hot and sharp. You are not human, Aaron. Not anymore. Prove it. Aaron clenched his jaw. What are the rules? Karatha's grin was all teeth. Survive being hunted by the pack for one night. Silence. Not symbolically, Karath added. Not metaphorically. Literally hunted, claws, fangs, and all. If we catch you, you fail. If you survive until dawn, you pass. Aaron exhaled slowly. And if I fail? Then you were never one of us to begin with. The hunt began at moonrise. Aaron ran. Not in panic, panic got you killed. He ran with purpose, weaving through trees, leaping frozen streams, his breath misting in the air. Behind him, he could hear them. The low growls, the crunch of snow, the scrape of claws on stone. They were toying with him. He knew it. They knew it. This wasn't about speed, it was about endurance, strategy, will. He climbed. Doubled back. Hid in a snowdrift for 20 minutes, slowing his heartbeat until even he wasn't sure he was alive. Moved again. Used the wind to mask his scent. Stayed in the shadows. 3 hours in, Karath caught him. One moment, Aaron was sprinting through a clearing. The next, something massive slammed into him from the side, sending him crashing into a tree hard enough to crack the bark. Stars exploded in his vision. Pain screamed through his ribs. Karath loomed over him, eyes blazing, fangs bared. Good, the alpha rumbled. You live. Others died sooner. Aaron groaned, half-conscious. Thanks. I guess. Karoth stepped back, offering a clawed hand. Aron took it, letting the wolf pull him to his feet. You earn the right to choose your path, Karoth said quietly. Pack or world? Aron didn't hesitate. I choose the world, but I choose to protect the pack. The wolves accepted. Reluctantly. Grumbling. One wolf even cried, though he claimed it was moonlight allergies. Aron descended the mountain the next morning, the obsidian sniper on his back, and a mission in his heart. Protect the creatures who gave him life. He didn't know yet that the world had been waiting for him, or that the organization that created him had never stopped looking. The first human settlement Aron encountered smelled like fear and overcooked meat. He'd been walking for 2 days straight, descending from the mountain's snow-capped peaks into the foothills where trees gave way to farmland and the air tasted wrong, thick with smoke, sweat, and something he couldn't quite name. Desperation, maybe. Or just the accumulated stench of too many bodies living too close together. The village of Greystone sat in a valley like a wound in the landscape, all crooked timber buildings and muddy streets. Aron paused at the tree line, studying it the way Kaelin had taught him. Exits first, threats second, everything else last. 3 roads in. 2 rivers bracketing the eastern side. Wooden walls, poorly maintained. Guards at the gate, but their postures screamed bored louder than any wolf howl. Amateurs, Aron muttered. He adjusted the obsidian rifle slung across his back, made sure his cloak covered most of it, and started walking. The guards noticed him immediately. Hard not to, really. Aron was 6 feet of lean muscle, scarred like a battlefield, with eyes that glowed faint gold in the wrong light and a walk that was just a little too predatory to be human. He didn't swagger. Swagger implied trying. He just moved like something that had never doubted it could kill you. Halt. One guard stepped forward, spear raised. He was young, maybe 20, with the kind of scraggly beard that suggested optimism rather than actual facial hair. State your business. Aron stopped. Tilted his head. Passing through. Passing through to where? Anywhere that isn't here. The second guard, older, scarred, with the dead eyes of someone who'd seen too much, studied Aron carefully. His gaze lingered on the cloak, the way it didn't quite hide the weapon beneath. You armed? The older guard asked. Yes. Most travelers lie about that. Most travelers are idiots. The older guard's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Fair. What's your name? Aron. Just Aron. Just Aron. A pause. The younger guard glanced at his partner, uncertain. The older one sighed, waved a hand. Fine. Keep your weapon sheathed, don't start trouble, and you'll be fine. Markets in the center square. Inns called the Silver Stag. Avoid the east side after dark, gangs run that area. Aron nodded once. Appreciated. He walked past them, ignoring the way the younger guard's hand trembled on his spear, ignoring the way the older one watched him like a man watching a wolf walk into a sheep pen. Greystone was loud. Aron had expected that, but expecting it and experiencing it were 2 very different things. The market square was a chaos of shouting vendors, crying children, bleeding animals, and the constant clatter of wheels on cobblestone. Smells assaulted him from every direction. Fresh bread, rotting vegetables, horse manure, cheap perfume, sweat. He kept to the edges, moving through the crowd like smoke, and noticed 3 things immediately. First, people stared. Not openly, humans were too cowardly for that, but in sidelong glances, nervous double-takes, whispers behind hands. Second, several of those whispers included the word feral. Third, there were wanted posters on nearly every building. Aron stopped in front of one, studying it. Wanted, the moonshot. Vigilante sniper. Wanted for unauthorized killings, sabotage, evading arrest. Reward, 10,000 gold sovereigns. Warning, considered extremely dangerous. Do not approach. The sketch was terrible, some artist's idea of what a mysterious sniper might look like, all brooding shadows and dramatic angles. It looked nothing like him. That you? Aron glanced sideways. A girl, maybe 16, with short dark hair, grease-stained hands, and the kind of sharp eyes that said mechanic or thief, stood beside him, arms crossed, grinning. No, Aron said flatly. Liar. She poked the poster. You've got the walk. That I could kill everyone here, but I am choosing not to vibe. Also, your eyes are glowing. Aaron blinked. The glow faded. They do that sometimes. Uh-huh. She stuck out a hand. I'm Tessa. And before you ask, yes, I'm going to follow you around until you do something interesting. I'm not interesting. You're literally on a wanted poster for being a ghost sniper. That's the definition of interesting. Aaron stared at her. She stared back, unbothered. He sighed. I don't need company. Nobody needs company. But you want it, whether you know it or not. She fell into step beside him as he started walking again. So where are you headed? Away. Away where? Anywhere. Wow, you're super specific. I can see why you're such a successful vigilante. Despite himself, Aaron's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Tessa grinned like she'd won something. They ended up at the Silver Stag because Aaron needed information and Tessa claimed to know literally everyone worth knowing. The inn was exactly what he expected. Dim lighting, sticky floors, the smell of ale, and bad decisions. Patrons clustered around tables, talking in low voices, occasionally shooting suspicious glances at the door. A bard played something mournful in the corner. The innkeeper, a woman with arms like tree trunks and a scowl like a battle axe, watched everything with the focus of a predator. Aaron chose a table in the back corner, positioned so he could see both exits and most of the room. Tessa flopped into the chair across from him. So, questions. I'm not answering them. Too bad. First question, why do your eyes glow? Next question. Fine. Second question, are you actually the moonshot, or are you just some guy who likes pretending to be mysterious? Aaron leaned back, studying her. She was young, but there was something sharp behind the mischief, something that reminded him of Vasca. The kind of person who survived by being smarter and faster than everyone else. What do you know about the moonshot? He asked quietly. Tessa's grin faded. She leaned forward, voice dropping. Enough. I know he's been taking out slavers, corrupt officials, and anyone who preys on people who can't fight back. I know he never misses. I know people are terrified of him because he's good not just at killing, but at choosing who to kill. And you want to know if that's me? I already know it's you. She tilted her head. I want to know why. Aaron was quiet for a long moment. Then, because someone has to. That's it? Just, someone has to. Yes. Tessa studied him, eyes sharp. Then she nodded. Okay, I'm in. In what? Whatever you're doing. I'm helping. I don't need help. Everyone needs help. Especially lone wolves. She paused. Wait, are you actually a wolf? Because that would explain so much. Before Aaron could respond, the inn door slammed open. 6 men walked in, armor gleaming, swords drawn, eyes scanning the room with the kind of cold efficiency that said military. The innkeeper's scowl deepened. We don't want trouble. The lead soldier, tall, scarred, with a captain's insignia on his chest, ignored her. His gaze swept the room, then locked onto Aaron. You. Stand up. Aaron didn't move. I said stand up. Tessa's hand drifted toward something under the table, a knife, probably. Aaron's voice was soft. I'm not who you're looking for. The captain smiled. It wasn't friendly. That's what they all say. But see, we got a report about a man with glowing eyes and a weapon he shouldn't have. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to come with us quietly, or we're going to make you come with us loudly. Aaron sighed. He really hated loudly. Last chance, the captain said, stepping forward. Aaron's hand moved faster than thought, faster than reflex, and suddenly the obsidian rifle was in his grip, barrel pointed at the floor, but ready. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Every patron froze. The bard's music stopped mid-note. Even the innkeeper went still. The captain's smile vanished. You don't want to do this, Aaron said quietly. Actually, the captain replied, hand tightening on his sword, I really do. What happened next took 3 seconds. Aaron moved. Not like a human, like water, like wind, like something that wasn't supposed to be solid. He sidestepped the captain's sword swing, slammed the rifle's stock into the man's ribs hard enough to crack bone, then spun and drove his elbow into the second soldier's throat. The third soldier lunged. Arin caught his wrist, twisted, and sent him crashing into the fourth. The fifth managed to get his sword up. Arin kicked it out of his hand, then swept his legs. The sixth, smarter than the others, backed toward the door. Arin let him go. The captain, wheezing, tried to rise. Arin planted a boot on his chest, leaned down, and spoke in a voice that carried no anger, no heat, just cold, certain fact. Tell whoever sent you that the moonshot doesn't work for anyone. Not you. Not your government. Not your gods. He leaned closer. And if you come for me again, I won't be this gentle. He stepped back. The captain scrambled to his feet, clutching his ribs, and limped toward the door. The other soldiers followed, dragging their injured with them. Silence filled the inn. Then, slowly, the bards started playing again. Conversation resumed. The innkeeper grunted. Drinks are on the house. For not destroying my inn. Arin sat back down. Tessa was staring at him, eyes wide. That was necessary, Arin said. I was going to say terrifying, but sure, let's go with necessary. She exhaled. So, still think you don't need help? Arin looked at her for a long moment. Then, against every instinct, he nodded. Fine. But if you slow me down, I won't. Tessa grinned. Trust me. I'm very good at not dying. Tessa's idea of helping turned out to involve breaking into a military outpost at midnight. This is a terrible idea, Arin said, crouched in the shadows outside the compound's eastern wall. All the best ideas are terrible at first, Tessa whispered back, hands working at the lock on a maintenance gate. That's how you know they're worth doing. That's not how anything works, says the guy raised by wolves. Arin had made the mistake of telling her that part. In his defense, she'd pestered him for 3 straight hours until he cracked. Now she brought it up constantly, usually at the worst possible moments. The lock clicked. Tessa grinned. See? Terrible idea, excellent execution. They slipped inside. The compound belonged to the Greystone Regional Guard, which, according to Tessa's intel, was less noble protectors and more corrupt thugs with uniforms. They ran protection rackets, skimmed taxes, and occasionally made people disappear when they asked too many questions. Arin had spent 3 days watching them. 3 days of noting patrol patterns, guard rotations, blind spots. 3 days of confirming what he already knew. These weren't soldiers. They were parasites in armor. Records office is this way, Tessa murmured, leading him through a narrow corridor between barracks. 3rd building, 2nd floor. That's where they keep all the good stuff, contracts, payroll, orders from whoever's actually running this place. And you know this how? I used to work here. Kitchen stuff. She shot him a look. What? A girl's gotta eat. Plus, nobody notices the person bringing soup. They reached the records office without incident. Tessa picked the lock in under 30 seconds, professional, efficient, barely a sound. Inside, the room was dark save for moonlight streaming through a high window. Shelves lined the walls, packed with ledgers, files, and the accumulated paperwork of bureaucratic corruption. Arin moved to the desk, began rifling through documents. Tessa went straight for a locked cabinet. What are we looking for? She asked. Anything about the moonshot? Anything about who's actually hunting me? You mean besides the entire military? The military's too organized for this. Someone's coordinating them. Someone with resources. Arin paused over a document, eyes narrowing. Someone who knows things they shouldn't. He held up a file. Project Lupus, Asset Recovery Directive. Tessa leaned over his shoulder, reading. Her eyes widened. Okay, that's not good. The file contained surveillance photos, grainy, long-distance shots of Arin leaving the mountains, entering Greystone, sitting in the inn. There were maps marking his known locations, notes about his capabilities, and, most damning, a detailed physical description that included one very specific detail. Subject exhibits enhanced reflexes, sensory perception, and golden eyes consistent with prolonged exposure to lycanthropic influence. They know, Arin said quietly. They know you were raised by wolves? Tessa's voice cracked slightly. How is that even? Who are these people? Arin flipped to the next page. His blood went cold. Cerberus Black Operations Division. Authorization, Director Kane. Objective, Capture asset Lupus 01 RN, alive if possible. Terminate if necessary. Secondary objective, locate and eliminate lycanthropic pack responsible for subject's conditioning. His hands tightened on the paper, crumpling it. They were going after the pack. RN? Tessa's voice was careful. You okay? No. He forced himself to breathe, to think. We need to leave. Now. What about? The door slammed open. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, tall, lean, wearing black tactical gear and a half-mask that covered everything below the eyes. In one hand, a pistol, suppressor already attached. In the other, a radio. Target acquired, the figure said into the radio. Female voice, calm, professional. Third building, records office. Moving to engage. Aaron's rifle was up in a heartbeat. The woman moved faster. She fired 3 times thwip thwip thwip, forcing Aaron to dive behind the desk. Tessa yelped and rolled toward the shelves. The bullets punched through wood like it was paper. Tessa, exit. Aaron shouted. What about you? I'll be right behind you. That was a lie, and they both knew it. The woman advanced, firing methodically, covering angles, cutting off the escape routes. She moved like someone who'd done this 1,000 times, smooth, efficient, lethal. Aaron popped up, fired once. The woman dodged, actually dodged a bullet, twisting mid-stride and returning fire. Fast. Too fast. You're enhanced, Aaron said, keeping his head down. So are you. The woman's voice was almost amused. Difference is, I chose this. You were made for it. Who are you? Someone who knows what you are. Someone who knows where you came from. She fired again, glass shattering. And someone who's going to bring you home, Aaron. Whether you like it or not. Aaron's mind raced. She was between him and the door. Windows were too high. And every second he stayed, more operatives were closing in. He needed a distraction. His hand found a ledger on the desk. Heavy. Hardbound. He threw it. The woman shot it out of the air. But in that half-second, Aaron moved, vaulting over the desk, closing the distance, rifle swinging like a club. She blocked with her forearm, countered with a knee to his ribs. He twisted, absorbed the blow, and slammed his elbow toward her face. She ducked, swept his legs. He hit the ground hard, rolled, came up firing. She was already gone out the door, into the hallway. Tessa. Here. Tessa emerged from behind the shelves, pale but unharmed. What the hell was that? Someone who's been trained like me. Aaron grabbed her arm. Window. Now. It's a 2-story drop. I know. He shot out the window, shards raining down, then grabbed Tessa and jumped. They hit the ground in a controlled roll, Aaron taking most of the impact, Tessa yelping but intact. Alarms screamed. Lights blazed to life across the compound. Shouts erupted from every direction. Run! Aaron roared. They ran. Across the courtyard, through the gap in the wall, into the forest beyond. Behind them, searchlights swept the darkness. Dogs barked. Orders were shouted. But Aaron knew forests. He led Tessa through terrain that would break an ankle, across streams that hid their scent, up slopes that left pursuers gasping. Hours passed. The sounds of pursuit faded. Finally, when dawn began to lighten the sky, Aaron stopped. They were deep in the wilderness now, far from Greystone, far from civilization. Just trees, stone, and the distant whisper of wind. Tessa collapsed against a boulder, chest heaving. Never doing that again. Aaron scanned the forest, listening. Nothing. For now. You did well, he said. I almost died. But you didn't. That's not comforting. Despite everything, Aaron smiled faintly. Welcome to my life. Tessa glared at him, then laughed, high and slightly hysterical. Your life is insane. I know. She sobered. So, Cerberus. They're coming for you. And for the wolves. Aaron nodded slowly. What are you going to do? He looked toward the mountain's distant, snow-capped home. Warn them, he said. And then we figure out who sent Cerberus after me. And why. We. Tessa raised an eyebrow. You said you were helping. I said that when I thought it would be fun. Not suicidal. Aaron met her gaze. You can leave. No judgment. This isn't your fight. Tessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she groaned. I'm going to regret this, aren't I? Probably. Fine. I'm in. She stood, brushing dirt off her pants. But you owe me. Like, a lot. Starting with explaining why that woman said you were made for this. Aaron's expression darkened. That, he said quietly, is a very long story. Good thing we've got a long walk ahead of us. They started back toward the mountains as the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Behind them, in Greystone, Cerberus operatives regrouped. And in the shadows of the capital city, hundreds of miles away, Director Kane studied the surveillance footage of Aaron's escape, eyes cold and calculating. He's better than expected, Kane murmured. Should we increase the deployment? An aide asked. No. Kane smiled, sharp, predatory. Let him run. Let him warn his precious pack. It'll make capturing them all so much easier. The aide hesitated. And if he resists? Kane's smile widened. Then we'll remind him what he was built to do. The journey back to the Emberwood Mountains took 5 days. 5 days of moving through wilderness that grew progressively colder, steeper, and more hostile. 5 days of Aaron teaching Tessa how to read tracks, find water, and avoid the kind of predators that viewed humans as convenient snacks. Question, Tessa said on the 3rd day, breath misting in the frigid air. If the wolves raised you, why do they live somewhere that actively tries to kill everything? Because it keeps humans away. Smart wolves. The smartest. They'd stopped making campfires after the 2nd night, too visible, too risky. Instead, they huddled in caves or under rock overhangs, sharing body heat and what little dried meat Aaron had brought. Tessa complained constantly but never seriously suggested turning back. Stubborn, Aaron thought. Like Vasca. On the 4th day, they hit snow. Real snow. Not the occasional dusting that melted by afternoon, but deep, powdery drifts that came up to their knees and made every step exhausting. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. Wind howled through the peaks like something alive and angry. Tessa's teeth chattered. How much further? Another day. Aaron glanced at her. She was pale, shivering despite the extra layers he'd given her. You need to rest. I'm fine. You're hypothermic. I said her legs buckled. Aaron caught her before she hit the snow, cursing under his breath. Her skin was ice cold, lips tinged blue. Not good. He scanned the area. There, a shallow cave, barely visible behind a curtain of icicles. Shelter. He carried Tessa inside, set her down gently, and immediately went to work. No fire, too dangerous, but he wrapped her in his cloak, positioned her against the back wall where the wind couldn't reach, and pressed close, sharing body heat. Sorry, Tessa mumbled. Don't apologize. You've done better than most humans would. Most humans have the sense not to follow a wolfman into the D-Death Mountains. Despite everything, Aaron smiled. Fair point. They stayed like that for hours, silent, still, waiting for warmth to return. Eventually, Tessa's shivering eased. Color crept back into her cheeks. She fell into an exhausted sleep. Aaron didn't sleep. He sat with his rifle across his lap, eyes on the cave entrance, listening to the wind and the distant howl of actual wolves, cousins to his pack, but not family. They wouldn't attack unless provoked, but it paid to be cautious. His thoughts drifted to Karath, to Kalin, to Vasca and the others. Were they safe? Did they know Cerberus was coming? And the question that haunted him most. If Cerberus had engineered him, what did that make him? Not human. Not wolf. Something in between. Something made. The thought twisted in his gut like a knife. They reached the sacred steps at dawn on the 5th day. The same stone stairs where Aaron had been found 18 years ago. Ancient, weathered, carved with runes that predated recorded history. They rose through the mist like a pathway to another world, which, in a sense, they were. Tessa stared up at them, eyes wide. This is it. This is it. It's. She searched for words. Ominous. Very ominous. Like, this is where horror movies happen levels of ominous. You'll be fine. Will I, though? Before Aaron could answer, a massive shape emerged from the mist at the top of the stairs. Karath. The High Alpha descended slowly, deliberately, each footfall resonating like thunder. His armor gleamed despite the morning fog. His eyes burned gold. And when he reached the bottom, he towered over them both like a living mountain. His gaze fixed on Aaron. Then, slowly, shifted to Tessa. She went very, very still. Karath, Aaron said carefully. This is Tessa. She helped me. She knows about the pack. Silence. Tessa swallowed. Hi. Nice armor. Karatha's eyes narrowed. She can be trusted, Aaron added quickly. Can she? It wasn't a question. Karath leaned down, bringing his massive wolf head level with Tessa's face. Steam rose from his nostrils. His fangs gleamed. And why should I believe that, little human? Tessa's voice shook, but she held her ground. Because I could have turned Aaron in for the reward. 10,000 gold sovereigns. Instead, I broke into a military compound with him, got shot at by super soldiers, and nearly froze to death hiking up your murder mountain. She lifted her chin. So if I was going to betray him, I had, way easier opportunities. Karath stared at her. Then, to Aaron's surprise, the Alpha's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. I like this one, Karath rumbled. She has teeth. Tessa blinked. Is that good? Very good. Karath straightened, turning to Aaron. Come. The pack awaits. The throne room was exactly as Aaron remembered: stone, fire, shadows that seemed alive. But now every member of the pack was present. Dozens of werewolves lined the walls, some in armor, some in furs, all watching with glowing eyes. Elder Kalen sat to Karatha's right, silver fur gleaming. Vaska stood to his left, twin blades strapped to her forearms, expression unreadable. And in the center of the room, kneeling before the throne, was something that made Aaron's blood run cold. A Cerberus operative. Still alive. Barely. His black tactical gear was torn, bloodied. His mask had been ripped away, revealing a young face, maybe 30, twisted in pain. Both his legs were broken. One arm bent at an unnatural angle. We found him 3 days ago, Karath said, voice echoing through the hall. Scouting the lower passes. There were 6 of them. The others did not survive. Aaron approached slowly. The operative's eyes tracked him, filled with recognition and fear. You, the man gasped. You're the asset. I have a name, Aaron said coldly. They told us. You were dangerous. Didn't say. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. Didn't say you'd gone native. Who sent you? Director Kane. Cerberus Black Ops. The man's breathing was ragged. Orders were, reconnaissance, find the pack, report coordinates. Did you report them? A pause. Then, slowly, the operative smiled, broken teeth, defiant. Yes. Aaron's hands clenched into fists. Karath growled, low and dangerous. Then they are coming. Full tactical division, the operative wheezed. 100 soldiers. Air support. Heavy weapons. They'll burn this mountain to ash if they have to. He looked at Aaron. You can't stop them. None of you can. You're just animals pretending to be. Vaska moved. One moment she was standing by the throne. The next, her blade was through the operative's throat. Silence. She wiped the blade clean on his gear, expression cold. He talked too much. Tessa, standing near the entrance, looked like she might be sick. Aaron felt nothing. Just the cold, practical calculus of survival. How long do we have? He asked Karath. Days. Maybe a week if the weather slows them. The Alpha's eyes glowed brighter. But they will come. And when they do, we fight, Vaska said simply. Kalen shook her head. We cannot win against 100 trained soldiers with modern weapons. Even we have limits. Then we evacuate, Aaron said. Move the pack deeper into the mountains. Somewhere they can't follow. And abandon our home? Vaska's voice was sharp. Everything we've built? Better than dying for it. You sound like a human. I am human. No. Karath stood, descending from his throne. He placed a massive clawed hand on Aaron's shoulder. Your pack. Human blood or not, you're ours. And we do not run. Even if it means your deaths? Even then. Aaron looked around the room, at the wolves who'd raised him, trained him, loved him in their brutal, unflinching way. Saw the determination in their eyes. The acceptance. They would fight. They would die. Unless he found another way. There is a third option, Aaron said quietly. Karatha's eyes narrowed. Speak. I go to them. Alone. Turn myself in. Aaron met the Alpha's gaze. They want me. Not you. If I surrender, maybe they'll leave the pack alone. No. The word came from Vasca, sharp as a blade. She crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, grabbed Aaron by the collar, and slammed him against the nearest pillar. You idiot, she snarled. You think we raised you, trained you, bled for you, just so you could throw yourself away? You think we'd accept that? If it saves you. We are wolves. Vasca's voice echoed through the hall. We do not trade our pack for safety. We do not bow. And we do not let our families sacrifice themselves because humans with guns decided we're inconvenient. She released him, breathing hard. Aaron slumped against the pillar. Then what do? He asked quietly. Karath was silent for a long moment. Then, we prepare for war. And we show Cerberus what happens when they threaten the pack. The gathered wolves howled in agreement, a sound that shook the mountain, that echoed through valleys, that promised violence and defiance. And Aaron, standing in the firelight with blood on his hands and doubt in his heart, made a choice. If they want a weapon, I'll give them one. But not the one they're expecting. Preparation for war, it turned out, involved a lot of sharpening things. Aaron spent the next 3 days doing exactly that, honing blades, checking rifle mechanisms, crafting ammunition from the pack's stockpile of materials. The wolves had accumulated an impressive arsenal over the centuries, ancient weapons, stolen military gear, and a few items that looked like they'd been taken off very unfortunate soldiers. Is that a grenade launcher? Tessa asked, staring at a particularly nasty piece of equipment. Vasca grinned, all fangs. Was. Until we improved it. How do you improve a grenade launcher? Make it shoot farther. Explode bigger. Vasca hefted the weapon like it weighed nothing. Also added spikes. For aesthetics. Tessa looked at Aaron. Your family is terrifying. I know. I mean it. Like, genuinely, nightmare fuel levels of terrifying. I know. Despite the impending doom, there was something almost peaceful about those days. The pack moved with purpose, preparing defenses, stockpiling supplies, running combat drills that looked more like choreographed violence than training. And through it all, Aaron found himself falling back into rhythms he'd almost forgotten. Morning hunts with Kaelin, moving through snow-silent forests. Afternoons sparring with Vasca, who still kicked his ass regularly. Evening councils with Karath, planning defensive positions and fallback routes. It felt like home. And that made what was coming so much worse. On the 4th night, Aaron climbed to the highest peak, a jagged outcropping that overlooked the entire mountain range. The stars were impossibly bright here, undimmed by human lights. The wind carried the scent of pine, snow, and stone. He wasn't alone. Karath stood at the edge, silhouetted against the night sky, massive and unmoving. Cannot sleep, the Alpha asked without turning. Too much to think about. Thinking is a human affliction. Wolves simply act. I'm not a wolf. No. Karath finally looked at him. But you are not entirely human either. You exist between worlds, Aaron. That is both your strength and your curse. Aaron was quiet for a moment. Then, the operative said I was made. Engineered. Project Lupus. I know. You know? Aaron's voice rose. How long have you known? Since the beginning. Karatha's tone was matter-of-fact. The scent on your swaddling clothes. Chemicals. Laboratory sterility. The way your body adapted to our training faster than any natural human could. He paused. We are not fools, pup. We knew you were different. Then why didn't you tell me? Would it have changed anything? Karath turned to face him fully. You were a child. Abandoned. Alone. What would knowing accomplish except burden you with questions that had no answers? Aaron clenched his fists. I deserve to know. Perhaps. But you deserved safety more. Karatha's eyes softened fractionally, but noticeably. We gave you that. A home. A family. A purpose. Whether your blood came from human lovers or laboratory tubes matters less than what you chose to become. And what did I become? Something better than what they intended. Karath placed a massive hand on Aron's shoulder. They built you to be a weapon. We raised you to be a person. That is the difference. Aron felt something crack inside his chest, not breaking, but shifting. All the anger, confusion, and fear he'd been carrying crystallized into a single, sharp clarity. He wasn't defined by how he was made. He was defined by who he chose to protect. Thank you, Aron said quietly. Karath nodded. Now come. Vasca has prepared something ridiculous involving too much alcohol and terrible singing. Your presence is mandatory. Is it actually mandatory? No. But she will hunt you down if you refuse, and frankly, I do not want to repair the damage. Despite everything, Aron laughed. The something ridiculous turned out to be exactly as advertised. Half the pack had gathered in the Great Hall, passing around barrels of something that smelled like fermented death and tasted worse. Someone had started a fire that was definitely too large for safety. And Vasca, standing on a table, was leading a drinking song that involved increasingly improbable boasts about past battles. And then I ripped his spine out through his throat. Vasca howled, raising a mug. The pack roared approval. Tessa, sitting near the fire, looked simultaneously horrified and fascinated. Is this normal? Very, Aron said, settling beside her. They're singing about disemboweling people. It's a beloved classic. Your family is insane. They prefer enthusiastic. Kaelin appeared, pressing mugs into their hands. Drink. It builds character. Tessa sniffed hers and immediately recoiled. This smells like paint thinner. That is because it contains paint thinner, Kaelin said serenely. Among other things. Drink. Aron took a sip. His eyes watered. His throat burned. Somewhere, his ancestors wept. Good. Kaelin asked. Terrible. Excellent. The elder wolf drifted away, leaving them to suffer. Tessa took a tiny sip, made a noise like a dying cat, and set the mug down. I'm going to die. This is how I die. Not from super soldiers or tactical strikes, but from wolf moonshine. Honorable death, Aron said. Shut up. They sat in companionable silence, watching the pack celebrate. Watching them laugh and fight and sing like they didn't have a military division marching toward them. Like tomorrow wasn't going to be blood and fire and desperate last stands. This is what they're fighting for, Aron realized. Not the mountain. Not the territory. This. Each other. Hey, Tessa said softly. You okay? Aron nodded. Yeah, I think I am. Good. Because I have a question. Why do you do it? The sniper thing. Taking out slavers and corrupt officials. You could have just stayed here, stayed hidden. Why risk it? Aron considered that. Because the pack taught me that strength isn't just about surviving. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. And there are a lot of people out there who need protection. That's very noble. Or very stupid. Can be both. Tessa smiled. For what it's worth, I'm glad I met you. Even if you dragged me into this mess. You invited yourself. Details. Vasca's song reached a crescendo that involved smashing mugs and howling at the ceiling. Several wolves joined in, creating a cacophony that was somehow both terrible and beautiful. Aron raised his mug. To bad decisions. Tessa clinked hers against his. To bad decisions and the people who make them tolerable. They drank. It was still horrible. The attack came at dawn. Aron was on watch, positioned at the northern overlook with his rifle and a clear sight line of the lower passes. The sun hadn't risen yet, just the faintest gray light touching the horizon, turning snow to silver. He saw them before he heard them. Black shapes moving through the mist. Too many to count. Spreading out in tactical formation, covering each other's advances, moving with the precision of professional soldiers. Cerberus had arrived. Aron's hand found the horn at his belt, a curved instrument carved from ancient bone. He raised it to his lips and blew. The sound echoed across the mountain, deep, resonant, unmistakable. The warning. Within seconds, the pack responded. Howls erupted from every direction. Aron saw shapes moving through the fortress, wolves taking positions, weapons being distributed, defensive barriers sliding into place with mechanical precision. Below, the Cerberus forces paused. Then they kept advancing. Aaron lined up his first shot. A commander, probably, standing slightly behind the others, gesturing orders. Range, approximately 1,200 meters. Wind, minimal. Elevation, significant. He breathed out. Squeezed the trigger. The rifle barely kicked. The commander dropped. Chaos erupted in the Cerberus ranks. Soldiers dove for cover, scanning for the shooter. But Aaron was already moving, slipping through shadows, repositioning. Second shot. A soldier trying to flank left. Down. Third shot. Radio operator. Down. Fourth shot. Heavy weapons specialist setting up a mounted gun. Down. For shots. For kills. No wasted ammunition. The wolves had taught him well. But there were too many. For every soldier he dropped, 3 more advanced. And they were smart, using smoke grenades, suppressive fire, coordinated advances. Military tactics against guerrilla fighters. This wasn't going to be a battle. It was going to be a siege. Aaron keyed his radio, a device Vasca had insisted he carry. They're at the lower pass. At least 80 soldiers, maybe more. Heavy weapons confirmed. Karatha's voice rumbled through the speaker. Fall back to secondary positions. We funnel them through the kill zones. Copy that. Aaron took one last look at the advancing army. Then he smiled, sharp, wolfish, dangerous. Come on, then, he whispered. Let me show you what a weapon raised by wolves can do. And he vanished into the mountain, leaving only bodies and fear in his wake. The Battle of Emberwood Mountain would be remembered in Cerberus files as Incident Lupus Alpha, a tactical disaster that resulted in 47% casualties and 0 mission success. But that came later. Right now, it was just survival. The Cerberus forces pushed into the lower fortress, advancing through narrow passages that echoed with howls and gunfire. They expected resistance. They expected casualties. They didn't expect the mountain itself to fight back. Stone traps triggered, sending boulders crushing through their ranks. Hidden pits opened beneath feet, dropping soldiers into darkness. Arrows, in the age of automatic weapons, whistled from murder holes, finding gaps in armor with impossible precision. And, through it all, the wolves. Vasca led the vanguard, twin blades flashing, cutting through tactical gear like paper. She moved too fast for bullets, too vicious for hesitation, leaving a trail of blood and screaming in her wake. Kaelin directed ambushes from the shadows, her silver form appearing and vanishing like a ghost, coordinating attacks with centuries of experience. And Karath was a living nightmare. He charged through the main corridor like an avalanche given teeth and rage, his massive frame shrugging off bullets, his claws rending armor and flesh with equal ease. Soldiers emptied magazines into him. He kept coming. One soldier panicked, dropping his weapon, running. Karath caught him in 3 strides. What happened next made the others retreat. Aaron watched from above, picking off stragglers, protecting the pack's flanks. Every shot counted. Every bullet found its target. He was a ghost with a rifle, a whisper of death that soldiers learned to fear. Sniper. Northeast Ridge. Can't get a lock, he's moving too fast. He's everywhere. Good. But despite their success, Aaron saw the truth. They were being pushed back. Step by step, meter by meter, the Cerberus forces advanced. They had numbers. They had equipment. They had reinforcements. The pack had courage and fury. It wouldn't be enough. Karath, Aaron said into his radio. We need to fall back to the throne room. Fortify there. Agreed. Vasca, Kaelin, disengage and retreat. The pack pulled back, a fighting withdrawal that left more Cerberus bodies but conceded ground. They funneled into the throne room, the heart of the fortress, defensible, but also a trap if they couldn't hold it. Tessa was there, pale but steady, clutching a rifle someone had given her. This is bad, isn't it? Very, Aaron admitted. The sound of boots echoed through the corridors. Getting closer. Karath stood before his throne, bloodied but unbowed. When they come through that door, we end this. One way or another. The pack formed up 30 wolves, all that remained from the battle outside. Wounded. Exhausted. But unbroken. The doors exploded inward. Cerberus soldiers poured through, a flood of tactical gear, automatic weapons, grenades. They opened fire immediately, a wall of bullets that forced the pack to take cover. Aaron returned fire, dropping soldiers with mechanical precision. Beside him, Tessa shot with surprising accuracy, not wolf-trained, but good enough. The battle became chaos. Claws against Kevlar. Blades against rifles. Ancient fury against modern warfare. And then, through the smoke and screaming, she walked in. The enhanced operative from Greystone. The one who'd nearly captured Aaron. She moved through the battlefield like water, dodging attacks, disabling wolves with brutal efficiency. Heading straight for Aaron. She called over the gunfire. This ends now. She raised her weapon. Aaron's rifle was empty. She smiled. And then Karath hit her like a meteor. The impact sent her flying across the room, crashing into stone with bone-breaking force. She struggled to rise. Karath loomed over her, claws raised. "No one," he growled, "threatens my son." He struck. But the operative was faster than she looked. She rolled, drew a blade, and stabbed up. The blade caught Karath in the side, sliding between armor plates, finding flesh. The Alpha roared. Time seemed to slow. Aaron watched as Karath stumbled. As blood dark and too much spilled onto stone. As the most powerful being he'd ever known fell to one knee. "No!" Aaron's scream echoed through the hall. He charged. Aaron moved without thinking. One moment he was 20 feet away. The next, he was on the operative, tackling her off Karath with enough force to crack stone. They hit the ground in a tangle of limbs and fury. She drove her elbow into his ribs. He slammed his forehead into her nose. Blood sprayed. She rolled, gaining distance, coming up in a combat stance. "You're faster than the file said. You stabbed my father." "He's not your father. He's a wolf." "Same thing." Aaron attacked. No rifle now. No distance. Just rage and 18 years of wolf-taught brutality. He moved like Vasca had trained him low, fast, targeting joints and soft tissue. The operative matched him move for move, but barely. She was enhanced. He was raised. There was a difference. He caught her wrist mid-strike, twisted, heard bone crack. She screamed and drove her knee into his stomach. Air exploded from his lungs. She followed with a palm strike to his throat. He gagged, stumbling back. She drew a pistol. Vasca's blade took her hand off at the wrist. The operative shrieked, clutching her stump. Blood fountained between her fingers. Vasca stood over her, breathing hard, twin blades dripping crimson. "You do not," Vasca growled, "hurt our family." She didn't give the operative time to respond. One blade across the throat. Clean. Final. The body dropped. Vasca turned to Aaron, eyes blazing. "Karath." They ran. The Alpha was down. Kalen crouched beside him, pressing hands against the wound in his side. Blood, too much blood, pooled beneath him, dark against pale stone. Karatha's breathing was ragged, labored. His eyes, usually molten gold, had dimmed to something flickering and faint. "How bad?" Aaron dropped to his knees beside them. "Bad." Kalen's voice was steady, but her hands shook. The blade went deep. Punctured lung, possibly liver. He needs a healer. A real healer. Not battlefield medicine. The nearest human settlement is 3 days away. "Then he has 3 days to die," Kalen said bluntly. Karatha's massive hand found Aaron's shoulder. Weak. Trembling. "No, healing." "Don't talk," Aaron said. "Save your strength. Listen." Karatha's voice was barely a whisper. "You, lead them now. You're going to be fine." "Aaron." The Alpha's grip tightened. "I am dying. Do not insult me with lies." He coughed. Blood flecked his muzzle. "You are Alpha now. Protect the pack." "I can't." "You can." Karatha's eyes focused, intensity returning for a brief moment. "You are my son. Blood or not. Ceremony or not. You are mine." Another cough. Weaker. "Make me proud." His hand fell. His eyes closed. His breathing stopped. Silence crashed through the throne room like a physical thing. Arin stared at Karatha's massive form, unmoving, already beginning to look less like a living being and more like a statue. A monument to something that had been. No, Arin whispered. Vasca's hand landed on his shoulder. He died protecting you. Protecting us. That is the death every wolf hopes for. He shouldn't have had to die at all. Perhaps not. But he chose his path. And he chose you to continue it. Arin looked around the throne room. At the surviving pack members, bloodied, wounded, exhausted. At Tessa, clutching her rifle, tears streaming down her face. At the bodies of Cerberus soldiers scattered across the floor. They'd won. But the cost. How many? Arin asked quietly. Kaelin's voice was hollow. 12 dead. 17 wounded. And Karath. Out of 50 wolves, they'd lost a quarter of their number. Against modern military tactics and overwhelming firepower, they'd survived. But survival wasn't victory. The remaining Cerberus forces had retreated, not routed, not defeated, just pulled back to regroup. They'd be back. With more soldiers. More weapons. More determination. And now the pack had no alpha. What do we do? A young wolf asked. Female, barely past adolescence, one arm wrapped in bloodied bandages. Every eye turned to Arin. He stood slowly, took a breath, looked at Karatha's body one last time. Then he made his choice. We don't run, Arin said. His voice didn't shake. We don't surrender. But we also don't fight a losing battle against an enemy that will keep coming until we're all dead. Then what? Vasca demanded. We go after the head. Arin turned to face them all. Cerberus wants me. Director Kane sent these soldiers. If I eliminate him, the operation loses its driving force. Maybe falls apart entirely. You cannot face an entire organization alone, Kaelin said. I won't be alone. Arin looked at Vasca. You taught me to be a blade. Sharp. Precise. Merciless. Then at Kaelin. You taught me to be shadow. Patient. Strategic. He looked back at Karatha's body. And he taught me to be pack. To protect what matters, no matter the cost. He faced them all. I'm going to take the fight to them. Hunt Cerberus the way they've hunted us. And I'm going to end this. Silence. Then Vasca stepped forward. I'm coming with you. Vasca. I am coming with you. Her voice was iron. You are alpha now. That means you don't get to martyr yourself without supervision. The pack needs you here. The pack needs leadership. Kaelin can provide that. Vasca glanced at the elder wolf, who nodded slowly. You need someone who can kill efficiently and question your terrible plans. That is me. Despite everything, Arin almost smiled. Fine. I'm coming too, Tessa said. Everyone turned to stare at her. She lifted her chin. What? You think I survived this long just to sit around while you two run off to commit tactical suicide? I've got skills. I can pick locks, forge documents, hack basic security systems, and I'm a decent shot now. She paused. Also, someone needs to keep you from doing something stupidly heroic. It will be dangerous, Arin warned. So was hiking up Murder Mountain. So was fighting super soldiers. I'm still here. Tessa's voice softened. Also, Karath saved my life. Twice. I owe him. And I owe you. Arin looked at Kaelin. The elder wolf's expression was unreadable. She is braver than she appears, Kaelin said finally. And loyalty is rare among humans. Let her come. Arin nodded slowly. Okay. 3 of us then. When do we leave? Vasca asked. Tomorrow. After we. Arin's throat tightened. After we honor Karath properly. They burned the Alpha at dawn. It was tradition, ancient, sacred, unchanged for 1,000 years. The pack gathered at the mountain's peak, where wind and sky met stone. They built a pyre from sacred wood, arranged Karatha's body with his armor and weapons, and set it ablaze as the sun crested the horizon. Flames rose into the gray morning, carrying smoke and ash toward the heavens. The pack howled, a sound that echoed across the mountains, through valleys, into the very bones of the earth. A farewell. A promise. A declaration that Karatha's legacy would endure. Arin stood at the pyre's edge, watching flames consume the wolf who'd found him, raised him, loved him. You were never supposed to be a weapon, Karath had once said. You were supposed to be better. Aran would make sure those words meant something. When the flames finally died and only ash remained, Kaelin stepped forward. She carried a small box, ancient wood, carved with wolf script. This was Karatha's, she said, offering it to Aran. He left instructions. If he fell, this was to go to you. Aran opened the box. Inside, a single item. Karatha's medallion. The Alpha's mark. A circle of volcanic glass and iron, engraved with the pack's symbol, a wolf beneath a crescent moon. He named you successor years ago, Kaelin said quietly. Before you even left the mountain. He always knew you would lead us one day. Whether you stayed or not. Aran lifted the medallion. It was heavy. Not physically, it weighed almost nothing, but the weight of what it represented pressed down like a mountain. I'm not ready, he said. No Alpha ever is. Kaelin placed a hand on his shoulder. But you're worthy. That is what matters. Aran fastened the medallion around his neck. It settled against his chest, warm despite the cold. He looked at the assembled pack. At wolves who'd lost friends, family, their leader. Who now looked to him for guidance. I won't let you down, Aran said. I promise. The pack howled again. And Aran, for the first time, howled back, not as a human imitating wolves, but as something in between. Something that belonged to both worlds and neither. An alpha. They left at midday. Aran, Vaska, and Tessa descended the mountain carrying supplies, weapons, and a single mission: find Director Kane and end Cerberus's hunt for the pack. The journey down was quiet. Reflective. On the second day, as they made camp in a cave that smelled of old snow and older stone, Tessa asked the question Aran had been avoiding. How are we supposed to find this Kane person? It's not like Cerberus publishes an org chart. We start with what we know, Aran said. Cerberus is Black Ops. That means government funding, military connections, but operating outside normal chains of command. They'll have bases, safe houses, communication networks. And we're just going to walk into them? No. Aran cleaned his rifle, movements precise. We're going to make them come to us. Vaska grinned. I like this plan already. You don't even know the plan. Does it involve violence? Probably. Then I like it. Tessa looked between them. You two are perfect for each other. It's disturbing. Thank you, Vaska said, completely missing the sarcasm. Aran allowed himself a small smile. Then his expression sobered. There's something else. Something the Cerberus operative said before he died. About me being made. Engineered. Project Lupus, Tessa said. We saw the files. Right. But why? Aran set down his rifle. Why create a child designed to be a weapon? What was the endgame? And why abandon me to the wolves? Maybe they didn't abandon you, Vaska said slowly. Maybe that was always the plan. Aran frowned. What do you mean? Think about it. You were engineered, then placed where wolves would find you. Where you would be trained in ways no human institution could replicate. Where you would develop abilities that combined human intelligence with wolf instincts. Vaska's eyes narrowed. What if you were not an accident? What if you were an experiment? The words hit Aran like a physical blow. An experiment. Not abandoned. Placed. They wanted to see what would happen, Aran said slowly. If they raised a human among wolves. What kind of weapon that would create. And now they want their results back, Tessa finished. Silence settled over the cave. Then they're going to be disappointed, Aran said finally. Because I'm not their weapon. I'm the pack's. And I'm coming for them. He loaded his rifle, chambered a round, and set it aside. Tomorrow, they would begin the hunt. But tonight, they would rest. And Aran would dream of fire, ash, and a massive wolf who'd taught him that strength wasn't about being unbreakable. It was about knowing what you'd break for. The first Cerberus facility they hit was a communications relay station disguised as a weather monitoring outpost. Remote. Lightly guarded. Perfect. Aran studied it through his rifle scope from a ridge half a mile away. 3 guards visible on rotation. Probably 2 more inside. Standard security protocols. Sloppy, overconfident. They thought they were safe this far from the mountains. They were wrong. Cameras? Aran asked. Tessa, crouched beside him with a tablet she'd borrowed from a dead soldier, nodded. For external, to internal. Motion sensors on the perimeter. Standard encrypted communications network. She tapped the screen. Give me 10 minutes and I can loop the camera feeds. You have 5. You're very demanding for someone who needs my help. For minutes 50 seconds. Tessa muttered something unflattering, but got to work. Vasca appeared beside them like smoke given form, startling Tessa badly enough that she nearly dropped the tablet. The north side has a ventilation shaft. Wide enough for me. Maybe for the human. I have a name, Tessa said. Yes. Human. That's not, never mind. Tessa turned back to her tablet. Cameras looping in 3, 2, 1. Done. You've got a 20-minute window before someone notices the glitch. More than enough. Aaron slung his rifle. Vasca, you and Tessa take the ventilation shaft. Disable internal security. Open the main door. I'll provide overwatch and handle external threats. You mean you're going to sit up here and shoot people while we do the hard work, Tessa said. Exactly. Just checking. They moved. Aaron watched through his scope as Vasca and Tessa disappeared into the facility like ghosts. He tracked the guard patrols, predictable, lazy, clearly not expecting trouble. One guard stopped to smoke. Another checked his phone. Amateurs. The facility's main door opened. Vasca's signal. Aaron keyed his radio. I'm moving in. Status. 2 guards down. 3 civilians secured in the communication room. No casualties. Vasca's voice was cool, professional. They're very surprised. I bet. Aaron descended from the ridge in minutes, moving fast and silent. He entered the facility with his rifle up, clearing corners with practiced efficiency. The hallway smelled like coffee, electronics, and fear. He found them in the main communication room. 3 technicians, young, terrified, cable tied to their chairs. Vasca stood over them like a particularly menacing shadow. Tessa was at the main console, fingers flying over keyboards. This is amazing, Tessa breathed. They've got access to the entire Cerberus Northern network. Communication protocols, facility locations, personnel rosters. She paused. Wait. This is weird. Define weird, Aaron said. There's a file here. High-level clearance. Encrypted 6 ways from Sunday. Tessa's eyes widened. It's about you. Project Lupus. The whole thing. Aaron's blood went cold. Can you decrypt it? Working on it. Her fingers moved faster. Whoever designed this security really didn't want people poking around. It's going to take, got it. The screen filled with text. Aaron read. And his entire world shifted. Project Lupus. Final report. Classification. Omega Black. Director. Dr. Elise Kane. Date. 18 years AGO. Subject Lupus. 01. Designation. Aaron has been successfully placed with the target pack. Initial concerns about rejection have proven unfounded. The pack has accepted the subject and begun training protocols as predicted. This validates our hypothesis that human subjects, when raised in extreme conditions by apex predators, will develop beyond normal human limitations. The werewolf pack of Emberwood represents the perfect training environment, brutal, efficient, and isolated. Subjects' genetic modifications have taken hold successfully. Enhanced muscle density, accelerated healing, heightened sensory perception, increased bone durability. Combined with the pack's training methods, we predict Subject Lupus 01 will become the most effective combat operative ever developed. Phase 2 will begin when subject reaches maturity. We will orchestrate a scenario forcing subject to leave the pack and enter human society, where we can observe integration capabilities and tactical application of skills. Phase 3 involves retrieval and final conditioning. Once subject is recovered, we can replicate the process with additional subjects, creating an entire division of wolf-trained operatives. Dr. Elise Kane has noted that emotional attachment to the pack is higher than anticipated. Recommend using pack as leverage during retrieval. Subject will comply to protect them. Final recommendation: this project represents the future of special operations. With proper funding and authorization, we can revolutionize warfare itself. The document continued, but Aaron had stopped reading. His hands shook. Not with fear. With rage. They planned it, he said quietly. All of it. My entire life. They engineered me, modified me, and planted me with the wolves. Just to see what would happen. Vasca's expression was murderous. They used you. They used all of us. The pack. Me. Everything. Aron's voice dropped to something cold and sharp. Koroth died because of this. Because they wanted to create a weapon. Tessa's face had gone pale. There's more. Look at the director's name. Aron looked. Dr. Elise Kane. The same last name as Director Kane, Tessa said. The person running the current operation. Related? Vasca asked. Has to be. Aron's mind raced. This Dr. Elise Kane created Project Lupus. The current Director Kane is continuing it. Family? Successor? Does it matter? Vasca's claws extended. Either way, they die. Aron copied the files to a portable drive, his movements mechanical. Behind him, one of the technicians whimpered. Please, the man stammered. We're just comms operators. We didn't know about any of this. We just monitor channels and file reports. Please don't kill us. Aron turned to look at him. The technician flinched. Where's Director Kane? Aron asked. I don't know. That's above my clearance. I swear. Where are the Cerberus headquarters? There isn't one location. It's decentralized. Multiple facilities. Cell structure. Even if you take out one, the others keep operating. Then I'll take out all of them. Aron's voice was flat. Starting with Kane. Where would the director be? I don't, the technician's voice cracked. Wait. There's a facility. The Black Site. Where they handle high-value assets. Interrogations, reconditioning, experimental procedures. If Kane is personally overseeing anything important, it would be there. Where? I don't have exact coordinates. But it's north. Deep north. Arctic territories. That's all I know. I swear. Aron studied him for a long moment. Then nodded. Vasca. Tie them up somewhere secure. Leave them enough slack to eventually free themselves. No permanent harm. Vasca looked disappointed but complied. Tessa was still staring at the screen. Aron. I'm sorry. I can't imagine what this feels like. It feels like clarity, Aron said. For 18 years, I've wondered who I was. What I was. Now I know. He shouldered his rifle. I'm exactly what they tried to make me. A weapon. The difference is, I choose my targets. He deleted the files from the system, set a delayed wipe protocol, and walked out. Behind him, the facility fell silent. They hiked for 3 days through progressively colder terrain. Tessa developed frostbite on 2 fingers before Vasca showed her how to properly wrap her hands. Aron shot a caribou that kept them fed for 2 days. They slept in caves and under overhangs, conserving heat, moving north with single-minded determination. On the 4th night, camped in the ruins of an old mining outpost, Tessa finally asked the question. What are you going to do when you find Kane? Aron didn't look up from sharpening his knife. What do you think? I think you're going to kill them. Then you already know the answer. But is it justice or revenge? Does it matter? Tessa was quiet. Then, yeah, I think it does. Aron set down the knife. Looked at her. They engineered me. Modified my DNA. Planted me with wolves to see if I'd survive. Then used my existence as an excuse to hunt the pack. Koroth died because of their experiment. So tell me, what would you call it? I'd call it rage wrapped in righteousness. Tessa's voice was soft. And I get it. I really do. But Aron, if you cross that line, if you become what they tried to make you, they win. They already won. I'm exactly what they designed. No. Vasca spoke up from where she was sharpening her own blades. You are what the pack made you. The humans gave you genetics. We gave you purpose. There is a difference. Is there? Yes. Vasca's eyes gleamed in the firelight. A weapon has no choice. A warrior does. You choose who to protect. Who to fight. Who to spare. That choice is what makes you more than your blood. Aron was silent for a long time. Finally, I'm still going to kill Kane. Obviously, Vasca said. But you will do it as a wolf defending his pack. Not as a weapon following programming. Yes. Aron nodded slowly. Yes. Good. Vasca returned to her blades. Now sleep. We have a long walk tomorrow. And Arctic bases do not storm themselves. They found the black site on the 7th day. It was exactly as grim as the name suggested, a massive compound built into a glacier, barely visible against the ice and snow. Guard towers, reinforced walls, heavy weapon emplacements, and, according to Tessa's intercepted communications, a skeleton crew of 50 soldiers. 50 trained, equipped, prepared soldiers between Aaron and Director Kane. This is suicide, Tessa said, staring at the facility through binoculars. Probably, Aaron agreed. I'm not talking you out of this, am I? No. Tessa sighed. Fine. But we do this smart. Not heroic. Smart. What do you have in mind? She grinned, sharp, mischievous, Vasca-like. I've been learning from you too. Time to put that education to use. The attack came at midnight. The first the guards knew of it was when their power grid died. Tessa, having infiltrated through a maintenance tunnel, systematically sabotaging every backup generator. The facility plunged into darkness. Emergency lights kicked in 30 seconds later. By then, Aaron had already taken his first shot. The tower guard dropped, silent, efficient. Second shot. Third. Fourth. Each one from a different position, each one leaving the defenders confused, panicked, unable to pinpoint his location. And while they searched for the sniper, Vasca entered the facility. She moved through the darkened corridors like a nightmare given form, silent, lethal, merciless. Guards died without seeing her. Alarms were triggered and immediately silenced. By the time backup arrived, she was already gone, leaving only bodies and terror. It wasn't a battle. It was a haunting. Aaron provided overwatch, picking off reinforcements, covering Vasca's advances, maintaining the pressure. The defenders tried to rally, tried to coordinate. But how do you fight enemies you can't see? Can't predict? Can't even find? 20 minutes in, half the facility's security force was dead or incapacitated. 30 minutes in, Tessa had infiltrated the command center and locked all the blast doors, trapping soldiers in sections of the facility. 40 minutes in, Aaron and Vasca met at the entrance to the facility's core, where, according to intercepted comms, Director Kane was waiting. Ready? Vasca asked. Aaron checked his rifle. Loaded. Chambered. Ready. Let's end this. They breached the door. The room beyond was pristine, white walls, sterile lighting, computer terminals displaying data streams. And in the center, standing calmly behind a reinforced glass barrier, was Director Kane. Not what Aaron expected. She was young, mid-30s, maybe. Dark hair pulled back severely. Lab coat over tactical gear. Eyes sharp and analytical behind thin-framed glasses. And she was smiling. Aaron, she said. Her voice was warm, almost proud. Welcome home. Aaron raised his rifle. I'm not your asset. And this isn't my home. Isn't it? Kane gestured around the room. This is where you were created. Where your genetic code was perfected. Where we designed every aspect of what you would become. She leaned closer to the glass. You are the pinnacle of human evolution. Our masterwork. And you've performed even better than we predicted. Karath is dead because of you. Karath was a data point. A variable in our experiment. His death was unfortunate, but ultimately irrelevant. Kane's smile didn't waver. What matters is that you survived. Adapted. Became exactly what we needed. And what is that? A weapon that thinks it's a person. Kane typed something on a terminal. But weapons don't get to choose their targets. They don't get to refuse their purpose. The room filled with gas, fast, colorless, odorless. Aaron felt it immediately. Heaviness in his limbs. Fog in his thoughts. His rifle dropped from numb fingers. Sedative, Kane explained. Keyed to your specific genetics. The glass is airtight. I'm perfectly safe. Vasca snarled, charging the barrier. Her blade sparked off the reinforced surface. Nothing. Your friend is impressive, Kane said. But ultimately just another data point. Once we've reconditioned you, we'll replicate the process. Create dozens like you. An army of wolf-trained operatives answering only to us. Aaron's vision blurred. He fought to stay conscious. Fought to think through the chemical fog. Think. What would Karath do? What would Kalen advise? What would? The glass shattered. Not from Vaska's blades. From a single bullet fired from outside the facility, traveling through 3 walls and a reinforced window, striking the glass barrier at its exact weakest point. Tessa's voice crackled through Aaron's radio. Told you I was getting better at this. The gas vented. Fresh air flooded in. Aaron's head cleared. He grabbed his rifle, vision focusing. Kane was running. Not this time, Aaron growled. He gave chase. The chase led through sterile corridors that twisted deeper into the glacier. Kane was faster than a normal human should be. Enhanced, probably. Her footsteps echoed ahead, always just out of sight, always one turn ahead. Aaron pursued with single-minded focus, Vaska at his side, both moving with the fluid efficiency of predators closing on prey. She's leading us somewhere, Vaska said. I know. Could be a trap. Definitely a trap. Good. I was worried this would be boring. They rounded a corner and found themselves in a massive chamber, easily 100 meters across, carved deep into the ice. Computer terminals lined the walls. Cryogenic pods stood in rows like metallic coffins. And in the center, suspended in a glass cylinder filled with blue fluid, was something that made Aaron stop dead. A child. Maybe 5 years old. Eyes closed, floating peacefully, connected to dozens of tubes and wires. Subject Lupus, 02, Kane's voice echoed from somewhere above. After your success, we began the next generation. Improved genetics. Better modifications. None of that pesky emotional attachment to wolves. Aaron's gaze swept the room. More cylinders. More children. Dozens of them. You're cloning people, he said quietly. We're creating them. Kane appeared on a catwalk above, flanked by 4 heavily armed soldiers. These aren't kidnapped children or stolen subjects. They're built from scratch. Perfect soldiers who will never question orders, never hesitate, never fail. They're children. They're tools. Kane's expression was clinical. Just like you. The only difference is, these won't have the disadvantage of thinking they're human. Vaska's growl was low and dangerous. You're diseased. I'm practical. Kane gestured to her soldiers. Kill the wolf. Take Aaron alive. The soldiers opened fire. Aaron and Vaska moved, splitting up, using the cryopods as cover. Bullets sparked off metal and ice. One struck a pod, cracking the glass. Fluid leaked out in a viscous stream. Aaron returned fire. 1 soldier dropped. 2. The others adjusted, coordinating their attacks, trying to pin them down. Above, Kane watched with the detached interest of a scientist observing an experiment. You're angry, she called down. I understand. But think about what we're offering. Purpose. Direction. The chance to be exactly what you were meant to be. Aaron shot at her. She ducked behind the railing. Missed. You killed Karath, he shouted. No. My soldiers killed him. And only because he was protecting an asset that didn't belong to him. Kane emerged from cover. But I understand your attachment. It's fascinating, really. We didn't program that. You developed genuine emotional bonds despite being designed for detachment. That's valuable data. He was my father. He was a test parameter. The words echoed through the chamber. Aaron's vision went red. He stopped thinking tactically. Stopped moving with precision. Just rage and rifle and the overwhelming need to hurt the person who saw his entire life as a science project. He charged. Vaska tried to stop him, grabbed his arm, shouted his name, but he was already moving. Up the stairs. Toward Kane. Toward the soldiers between them. The remaining 2 soldiers fired. Aaron dodged, but not fast enough. A bullet grazed his shoulder. Another caught his leg. Pain exploded through him, but he didn't stop, couldn't stop, wouldn't. A massive impact hit him from the side. Something huge, armored, impossibly strong slammed into him like a freight train, sending him crashing into a cryopod hard enough to crack his ribs. He hit the ground gasping, rifle gone, vision swimming. Through the blur, he saw it. Not human. Not wolf. Something in between. A werewolf, but wrong. Too big, too mechanical. Armor grafted directly into flesh. Weapons where claws should be. eyes that glowed not with natural fire but with artificial light. Lupus Alpha, Kane said from above. Our first successful combat hybrid. Part wolf, part machine, all obedience. She smiled. We recovered DNA from your pack during a raid 10 years ago. Karatha's, specifically. Thought you'd appreciate the irony. Aron's world stopped. You cloned Karath? We improved him. Removed the free will. Enhanced the physical capabilities. Created the perfect biological weapon. Kane's eyes gleamed. This is what you could become, Aron. What you should become. Stop fighting your nature. Accept what you are. The Karath thing, this abomination, advanced on Aron. Its movements were wrong. Too stiff. Too mechanical. Nothing like the fluid power of the Alpha Aron remembered. But the face. The face was his. Vaska appeared from the shadows, blades flashing. She struck at the creature's joints, looking for weaknesses. Her attacks barely scratched the armor. It backhanded her across the room. She hit a wall with a sickening crunch and didn't get up. Vaska. Aron tried to rise. His leg buckled. Broken or sprained, didn't matter. He couldn't stand. The Karath thing loomed over him, raising one massive clawed hand. Metal and flesh fused together in grotesque harmony. This was it. The end. Killed by a corrupted version of the father who'd raised him. Perfect data point, some distant part of his mind thought. The claw descended. And stopped. The creature's head tilted. Its eyes, glowing, artificial, wrong, fixed on Aron's chest. On the medallion. Karatha's medallion. The Alpha's mark. For a moment, something flickered in those mechanical eyes. Something that might have been recognition. Might have been memory. Might have been the barest fragment of who this creature had been before they violated him. The claw lowered. Kane's voice snapped out. Lupus Alpha, engage. The creature hesitated. I said engage. The creature turned. Looked up at Kane. And for the first time since its creation, disobeyed. It roared, a sound that was part machine, part beast, and part something broken and enraged, and launched itself at the catwalk. Kane screamed. Her soldiers fired, bullets sparking off the creature's armor. It didn't slow. It reached the catwalk, grabbed the nearest soldier, and threw him down into the chamber. The man's scream cut off abruptly. Chaos erupted. Aron dragged himself toward where Vaska lay motionless. His legs screamed protest. Blood ran down his shoulder. Everything hurt. Vaska, he gasped, reaching her. Vaska, wake up. She groaned. That hurt. You're alive. Disappointed or relieved? Both. Above them, the Karath thing was systematically destroying everything in reach: soldiers, terminals, equipment. Kane had retreated through a door, sealing it behind her. The creature smashed against it, denting metal, howling with frustrated rage. Then its eyes found the cryopods. No, Aron whispered. Don't. Too late. The creature turned on the pods, the cloned children suspended in artificial sleep. It raised its arms, weapons charging, preparing to destroy everything Kane had created, including the innocents who'd never asked to be made. Aron's hand found his rifle. Broken stock, cracked scope, but functional. He raised it. Aimed at the creature. At the thing wearing Karatha's face. His hand shook. This isn't him, Aron told himself. It's just genetic material. Just a tool they built. Nothing more. But it looked like him. Moved like him. Had his DNA. And somewhere, buried beneath machinery and conditioning, it had recognized the Alpha's mark. Had hesitated. Do it, Vaska said quietly. She'd managed to sit up, clutching her ribs. It is not him. It is not Pac. It is an abomination. End it. Aron's finger tightened on the trigger. The creature turned, looking at him. Those mechanical eyes met his. And Aron saw it. The briefest flicker. The smallest recognition. Help, those eyes seemed to say. Please. His finger left the trigger. I can't. Aron. I can't. His voice cracked. It's in pain. It's confused. It doesn't know what it is. It's just. He lowered the rifle. It's like me. The creature stared at him. Then, slowly, it lowered its weapons. It looked at the cryopods. At Kane's sealed door. At Aron. And it made a choice. It turned away from the pods, away from the innocent children, and smashed through a wall. Ice and stone exploded outward. Wind howled in from the Arctic night beyond. The creature looked back once. Then it disappeared into the blizzard. Gone. The facility was dying. With the creature's rampage, structural supports had been compromised. Ice groaned overhead. Cracks spiderwebbed across walls. Somewhere, alarms blared warnings about catastrophic failure. "We need to leave," Vasca said. "Now." The children. Aaron looked at the cryopods. "We cannot carry them all. Then we wake them. Release them. Something. Aaron, this place is collapsing. I'm not leaving them." His voice echoed through the chamber. Vasca looked at him for a long moment. Then nodded. "Fine. But we move fast." They went to the nearest pod. Tessa's voice crackled through the radio. She'd made it inside, was fighting her way to their position. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster. The whole glacier is coming down." Aaron found the release mechanism on the first pod. Pulled it. Nothing happened. "It's locked," Vasca said, examining the controls. "Biometric security. Probably keyed to Kane's DNA." Aaron raised his rifle. "Then we break it. That could kill the child." He fired. The glass shattered. Fluid gushed out. The child inside, a girl, maybe 6, gasped and opened her eyes. Confused. Terrified. Alive. "It's okay," Aaron said, catching her as she fell forward. "You're safe now." She stared at him with eyes too old for her face. "Are you my handler?" The word hit him like a punch. Handler. They'd been conditioned already. Programmed. Told they were tools. "No," Aaron said gently. "I'm not your handler. I'm..." He paused. "I'm someone who's going to help you be more than they wanted you to be." He handed her to Vasca, then moved to the next pod. And the next. Breaking glass, pulling children free, ignoring the warnings, ignoring the pain, ignoring everything except the need to save them. "These are what I would have been," he thought, "if the wolves hadn't found me first." Tessa arrived, breathless and bleeding from a cut on her forehead. "We have to go now. The main supports are failing. Help me wake them." She didn't argue. Just moved to the pods and started breaking them open. They saved 15 before the ceiling began to collapse. "That's all we can carry," Vasca said, holding 2 children under each arm. "Move." They ran. Through corridors filling with ice and debris. Past bodies and broken equipment. Following Tessa, who'd memorized the facility layout, who led them through maintenance tunnels and emergency exits. Behind them, the black site died, collapsing in on itself, swallowed by the glacier, erasing evidence of Cerberus's crimes. But not all evidence. They emerged into the Arctic night carrying 15 confused, terrified, artificially created children who thought they were weapons. And Aaron, bleeding and broken but undefeated, made a promise. "I'll show you what it means to be more than they made you." 3 hours later, safely away from the collapsing facility, they made camp in an ice cave. The children huddled together, scared, confused, asking questions about handlers and training schedules and mission parameters. Tessa did her best to comfort them, wrapping them in emergency blankets, promising them food and safety. Vasca stood watch at the cave entrance, scanning for pursuit. And Aaron sat apart from them all, staring at Karatha's medallion in his palm. "You were right," he said to the memory of his father. "I'm not their weapon. I'm yours. The Pack's." He closed his fist around the medallion. "And I'm going to finish this. For you. For all of us." Vasca approached, silent as snow. "Kane escaped. I know. She will rebuild. Create more facilities. More abominations. Then I'll destroy those too. This is not a battle that ends, Aaron. This is a war. One that could take years. Decades." Aaron looked at the children. At Tessa. At Vasca. Then he smiled, wolf-sharp, dangerous, determined. "Good thing I was raised by wolves," he said. "We're very good at long hunts." 2 days later, encrypted message arrived via a channel Tessa had set up to monitor Cerberus communications. It was addressed directly to Aaron. "You think you've won. You think destroying one facility changes anything. But you still don't know the truth. About Karath. About why we placed you. About what you really are. Meet me. Alone. Coordinates attached. Come, and I'll tell you everything. Or don't, and spend the rest of your life wondering who you really are. Dr. Elise Kane. Aaron stared at the message. Dr. Elise Kane. The original creator. Not the director he'd fought, but someone older. Someone who'd started this whole nightmare. It's a trap, Vasca said. Obviously. You are going anyway. Yes. Then I come with you. Aaron shook his head. Someone needs to get these kids somewhere safe. Somewhere Cerberus won't find them. That's you. Aaron. Please. He met her eyes. I need to know. I need to understand why. And I can't do that if I'm worried about keeping everyone safe. Vasca was quiet for a long time. Then she gripped his shoulder. If you die, I will be very angry. Noted. And if you do something stupidly heroic without me there to mock you, I will never forgive you. Despite everything, Aaron smiled. Also noted. She pulled him into an embrace, brief, fierce, familial. Come back, little brother. I will. It was a lie. They both knew it. But sometimes, the kindest thing you could do was lie to the people you loved. The coordinates led to a place Aaron hadn't expected. Not a military facility. Not a black site. Not some underground laboratory filled with nightmares. A cabin. Small, wooden, nestled in a valley where pine trees grew thick and a frozen stream cut through stone like a silver scar. Smoke rose from the chimney. A single light burned in the window. Domestic. Almost peaceful. Which made it infinitely more disturbing. Aaron approached from downwind, moving with wolf-taught silence. His rifle was loaded, his mind clear, his heart complicated. He'd left Vasca, Tessa, and the children 3 days ago. Traveled alone through wilderness that would kill most humans. Survived on instinct and determination. And now he was here. At the end of everything. He circled the cabin twice. No guards. No traps. No security measures he could detect. Just a woman alone in the wilderness, waiting for him. Definitely a trap. He went to the front door anyway. It opened before he could knock. The woman standing in the doorway was old, 70s, maybe older. White hair pulled back in a braid. Face lined with age and something that might have been regret. She wore simple clothes, sweater, jeans, wool socks. No lab coat. No tactical gear. Just a woman. But her eyes. Her eyes were sharp, analytical, familiar. Aaron, she said. Her voice was soft, grandmother-like. Thank you for coming. Dr. Elise Kane. Just Elise, please. The doctor feels so clinical. She stepped back. Come in. It's cold out there. Every instinct screamed at him not to, but he'd come this far. He entered. The cabin's interior was shockingly normal. Books on shelves. A crackling fire. Tea brewing on a small stove. Photographs on the walls, none of them showing laboratories or soldiers. Just landscapes. Mountains. Wolves. Aaron noticed that last part immediately. You've been watching the pack, he said. For 18 years. Elise gestured to a chair. Please. Sit. I'm too old to be threatening, and you're too smart to trust me, so let's just have tea and talk honestly. Aaron didn't sit. But he lowered his rifle. Slightly. Elise poured 2 cups of tea with steady hands. Set one on the table near him. Took her own and settled into a worn armchair that looked like it had been there decades. You destroyed my daughter's facility, she said. No accusation. Just fact. Your daughter. Director Kane. My daughter. I gave her the research, the methods, the ambition to continue Project Lupus. Elise sipped her tea. That was a mistake. A mistake that got Karath killed. Yes. No defensiveness. No justification. Just acknowledgement. And for that, I am more sorry than you can possibly know. Aaron's grip tightened on his rifle. You created me. Engineered me. Threw me away like garbage. No. Elisa's voice sharpened. I saved you. Silence crashed through the cabin. Explain, Aaron said quietly. Elise set down her tea. Project Lupus wasn't my idea. It was the government's. They wanted super soldiers. Weapons without conscience. They funded the research, provided the facilities, gave me unlimited resources. She looked at the fire. I was young. Ambitious. Stupid. I thought I could create something better than war. Something that could end conflict. You created slave soldiers. I created children with enhanced abilities. But the moment they were viable, the government took over. Started talking about conditioning, programming, removing free will. Her voice dropped. I couldn't let that happen. Not to you. Not to any of them. So you left me in the mountains. I saved you in the mountains. Elise met his eyes. I knew about the wolf pack. Studied them for years. Knew they had compassion buried beneath the savagery. Knew they took in strays. She smiled faintly. I also knew you were special. Your genetic profile showed something the others didn't. Adaptability, empathy, potential for genuine connection. You weren't just a weapon. You were a person. So you used the wolves as free childcare. I gave you a family. Elise's voice cracked. Because I couldn't be one. The moment the government realized what I'd done, they would have killed me and taken you back. So I disappeared. Let them think I'd died. And I watched from a distance as the wolves raised you into something magnificent. Aaron wanted to hate her. Wanted to pull the trigger and end this. But something in her words rang true. Karath, he said. Did you know they'd clone him? Elise's face crumpled. No. That was my daughter. She became everything I'd tried to prevent. Took my research and twisted it into something monstrous. She stood, walked to the window, stared out at the snow. She wanted to prove she was better than me. Wanted to succeed where I'd failed. She cloned children. Created slave soldiers. Hunted the pack. I know. Elise's voice was barely a whisper. I tried to stop her. Destroyed files. Sabotaged equipment. But she was too smart. Too determined. She turned. That's why I contacted you. Because you're the only one who can end this. She escaped. The black site collapsed, but she wasn't inside. I know where she is. Elise pulled a data drive from her pocket. Everything. Her new facility. The location of every remaining Cerberus cell. Access codes. Security protocols. Everything you need to destroy the organization forever. She held it out. Aaron didn't take it. Why? She's your daughter. She's a monster wearing my daughter's face. What she's become. Elise's voice broke. I lost her years ago. Now I'm just trying to stop the damage. Aaron studied her. Looking for lies. For manipulation. For any sign this was another trap. He saw only grief. Slowly, he took the drive. There's something else you should know, Elise said. About Karath. About why he found you. Aaron went still. What do you mean? It wasn't coincidence. I didn't just leave you anywhere in the mountains. Elise returned to her chair. I left you on the sacred steps. The exact place where, according to wolf legend, the pack finds what they need most. That's just superstition. Is it? Elise smiled sadly. Karath was dying when he found you. Old wounds, internal damage, age. He had maybe a year left. The pack was preparing for his death. She paused. But then he found you. And something changed. He lived 18 more years. Longer than any alpha in recorded pack history. Aaron's throat tightened. You saved him, Elise said softly. Just as much as he saved you. You gave him purpose. A reason to keep fighting. A son. Her eyes glistened. That's what I wanted. Not a weapon. A person who could be loved. Who could love back. The words hit Aaron like a physical blow. He'd spent so long thinking of himself as a tool. A creation. Something artificial. But Karath had loved him. The pack had loved him. And that love, fierce, brutal, unconditional, was real. Thank you, Aaron said quietly. Elise nodded. One more thing. The creature. The one wearing Karatha's face. What about it? It's out there. Somewhere. Confused. In pain. My daughter's conditioning is breaking down. Eventually, it will either go completely feral or... She met his eyes. Or it will look for the only other thing that exists between wolf and man. Me. You. Aaron absorbed that. Another problem for another day. Right now, he had more immediate concerns. Where's your daughter? Elise handed him a paper map. Old-fashioned. Untraceable. Here. A facility built into an abandoned mine. Remote. Heavily defended. She'll be prepared for you. Good. Aaron folded the map. I'd hate for this to be easy. He turned to leave. Aaron, Elise called. When this is over, when you've stopped her, will you do something for me? He looked back. Go home, she said. To the pack. To the people who made you more than your genetics. And live. Not as a weapon. Not as an experiment. Just live. Aaron was quiet for a moment. Then, I'll try. He walked out into the snow. Behind him, Elise Kane stood in the doorway, watching him go. The boy she'd created, the weapon she'd saved, the person the wolves had forged. Be safe, Aaron, she whispered. And forgive an old woman for her sins. The facility was exactly as nightmarish as advertised. Built into a mountain, disguised as a mining operation, it sprawled across 3 levels with enough security to make the black site look friendly. Automated turrets. Biometric locks. Elite guards who actually knew what they were doing. And somewhere inside, Director Kane. Aaron studied it from a ridge 2 miles out, gathering information, formulating strategy. This is where it ends, he thought. One way or another. He'd contacted Vasca and Tessa. Told them the plan. They'd wanted to come, of course. He'd refused, of course. They'd threatened to come anyway. He'd asked them one last time to trust him. To let him do this alone. They'd agreed. Reluctantly. Vasca had made him promise to survive. Tessa had made him promise to come back and teach her more wolf tricks. He'd promised both. Another lie. Because this wasn't a mission you came back from. This was an ending. He began his approach at sunset, not for tactical advantage, but because wolves hunted at dusk. It felt appropriate. The first guard never saw him. 1 shot. Silent. Clean. The second heard something. Turned. Too slow. The third almost got a warning off. Almost. Aaron moved through the facility like smoke given purpose, disabling security, planting explosives, leaving a trail of incapacitated guards and sabotaged equipment. Not killing unless absolutely necessary. These were soldiers following orders. They didn't deserve death. Just unconsciousness and really bad headaches. 20 minutes in, alarms blared. They'd noticed him. Good. He wanted her to know he was coming. Director Kane was waiting in the main laboratory, a massive space filled with equipment, terminals, and more of those horrible cryopods. She stood in the center, calm, confident, wearing tactical gear and holding a remote detonator. Aaron, she said. I knew you'd come. Where are they? Aaron demanded. The children. The clones. Evacuated when the alarm started. Safe. For now. She smiled. I'm not my mother. I don't waste resources. Your mother sent me here to stop you. Something flickered across Kane's face. Pain. Anger. Both. Of course she did. Because I'm the monster. I'm the one who took her precious research and used it the way it was meant to be used. Kane's voice rose. She wanted to create one perfect soldier and set him free. I want to create an army that will never fail, never disobey, never die before completing their mission. You want slaves. I want order. Kane pointed at him. You're proof it works. You're better than any normal human. Stronger, faster, more efficient. And you could be even better if you'd just accept what you are. I know what I am. Aaron lowered his rifle. I'm a person who had a family. Who lost people I loved. Who learned that strength isn't about being a weapon. It's about choosing who to protect. Pretty words. Kane raised the detonator. But words don't stop bullets. She pressed the button. Nothing happened. Her eyes widened. You're surprised, Aaron said. Tessa's good at what she does. She's been in your system for an hour. Disabling explosives. Locking blast doors. Ensuring that when this place goes down, you're the only one inside. You. Aaron raised his rifle. This is for Karath. For the pack. For every person you tried to turn into a weapon. Kane drew a pistol. They fired simultaneously. Aaron's bullet struck her center mass. She staggered, clutched her chest, went down. Her bullet caught him in the shoulder. Same shoulder as before. His arm went numb. The rifle fell. They stared at each other across the laboratory, both wounded, both knowing this was the end. You don't understand. Kane gasped. Blood stained her tactical gear. We could have changed the world. You tried to steal it. Aaron pressed a hand to his shoulder. Blood seeped through his fingers. There's a difference. Kane's eyes dimmed. Mother was right about you. She went still. Aaron stood there for a moment, staring at her body. No triumph. No satisfaction. Just exhaustion. He triggered the facility's self-destruct, real explosives, the ones Kane didn't know about, the ones he'd planted himself. He had 60 seconds. He ran. Through corridors. Past laboratories. Upstairs. His shoulder screamed. His vision blurred. But he kept moving. Just a little further. Just a little. He burst out into the mountain air as the facility exploded behind him. The shockwave threw him forward. He tumbled down the slope, pain exploding through every nerve, until he finally came to rest in a snowbank. Everything hurt, but he was alive. He'd done it. The end.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out.